What's going on, y'all? I'm KM Best, your favorite 69th ranked Marvel Snapper. I am joined by Trishula TTV, and I have to say TTV because Trishula is also a Yu-Gi-Oh card, which is a thing I didn't know because I have no idea about Yu-Gi-Oh, but he has no idea about Marvel Snap. And that's sort of what we're going to be getting at today. I know that Yu-Gi-Oh is very different from what I remember, the Dark Magicians, the Blue Eyes White Dragons. That's probably not a thing anymore, as far as I can tell. Or if it is, it's only because they like push it for nostalgia. But you have only played Marvel Snap for, if I'm not mistaken, 2 days. Am I wrong on that? You were my partner in Twitch Rivals, and that's it.
Yeah, it maybe more like 4 days. You know, I put
Okay.
in a couple days of testing on my own, but yeah,
Right.
pretty limited experience, I would say.
So what I've done is, because I remember that metagame, I picked some cards that just were not relevant in that metagame, but for all you know, they could be now. And also some new cards that I think are exciting and hard to rate. So I put together a list of cards that I think are just going to be like very fun for you to try to work through in terms of Marvel Snap. What do you remember about Snap?
I remember when the meta that we played in, they had a lot of like move cards were really meta, so like Spider-Man and stuff was really good. I remember Jeff was a funny card. And then I remember, I think it was like the Eternals, or like the Galactus deck that you were playing. I remember
Oh God, you remember my Thanos Galactus deck? Yes,
that deck was cool. That looked awesome.
Yes. I was confused. All right, so introduce yourself to the audience. Who are you? What have you done, etc.
Well, hi, my name is Trishula TTV or Mike. I play the Yu-Gi-Oh trading card game, both the paper physical card game as well as the digital online Yu-Gi-Oh Master Duel. I stream the game all the time. I'm a big content creator, and I'm very well known for playing the dragon, like the dragon deck. I'm almost like I guess kind of like a Kaiba, I guess, of like the community, because all I do is play with dragon type monsters, and find a lot of success with those cards.
Well, then you're not the Kaiba, right? I remember how that went. That dude lost all the time. He never won any games.
Yeah, maybe when I'm up against the protagonist, I'll lose. But you know, maybe off screen, off to the side, I'm still winning.
Okay.
But yeah, I've seen a lot of success, both at like the regional circuit, the nationals level, championship series and stuff. I think my most recent accomplishment was this past weekend. I came second place in a major Master Duel championship.
Okay. So you know what you're talking about. You've played card games before. Yes. You understand like the basics of Snap. Like there are 3 lanes and you win 2 out of 3 of them. And I don't need to run through all of that for you, right?
Yeah. I vaguely know how the game works.
All right, that's really all we're going for here. We're gonna jump into card number 1 here. This is Mbaku. He is a 1/2. If this is in your deck at the end of the game, it jumps to a location. And as a note, he is played by, in the MCU, probably my favorite actor in the MCU. So shout out to Winston Duke.
Ooh. Well, right off the bat, I'm going to say that this card's probably pretty decent. Because it makes me think of, I don't know if you've ever played Hearthstone, but it makes me think of a card that was really broken in Hearthstone, which was Patches. Which was like the only card in Hearthstone that if you played like a pirate, it would summon out from your deck. And I don't really remember too many other cards doing that in Marvel Snap. So I could see this like maybe being good, like that if it's just in your deck, that like you just get a free 2 extra power on a lane. But I could also see this kind of being pretty bad because deck sizes are pretty small in Marvel Snap. It's like 12 cards, right?
Correct.
And that's over 6 turns, so like 50% of the time you probably draw this. So I don't know. I'd maybe like, are we doing this out of 5? Like,
if you want to do out of 5, that actually would make it more fun. Generally, I just look for thumbs up or thumbs down. But if you want to do out of 5, let's do it out of 5. Yeah, okay.
I'll do it out of 5.
I don't like putting people on the spot, but you put yourself on the spot here, so we're doing it out of 5.
I'll do it. I'll give this like a 3.5 out of 5.
What's the point of not doing it out of 10 then? Isn't that just a 7 out of 10? I can do math. 3.5 out of 5 is just 7 out of 10. If you're gonna do half stars.
Well, I don't know. Like it's like right in the middle of being like mid, and it's like like maybe I should say like 2.5. It's like 2.75. I don't know. Like it's like right in the middle. It's like it feels like it like maybe is good, maybe it's bad. Like I feel like this card could be like slightly above average because if you draw it early, it's just a 1-drop. Like you can just throw it out for free. If you draw it late, then it's just 2 free power.
Right. So this card actually sucks really bad. This is a terrible, awful, no good, very bad card. It's
very bad card.
It's one of the worst cards in the game. The major thing that you're missing with the patches comparison, because I do think that is a nice place to start, and it elucidates some of the differences between Hearthstone and a game like Marvel Snap, is Patches was good because he'd get out of the deck, and then you could use him to advance your board position. You would value trade, not even value trade with him, but you would trade with him. He would be free. He is a free unit that you use when a 1-power unit is good in Hearthstone is very, very early, right? And this guy's a very small unit that comes out very, very late. And so he's not actually impacting the board state the way that something like a Patches could. Patches could often be like a free, I kill your 2/1 for free. That's what he would be, and that would help you advance the board state and snowball the game. In a Hearthstone game, Mbaku is not that because he's just here, random 2 points. Might not even be at the place that you need it to be. And also, 75% of the time he's going to be in your hand.
Yeah.
It's not ideal.
So we'd move that maybe down to like a 1.5 out of 10.
Like a 1 out of 10. Like he's sincerely
maybe
one of the worst.
5 then.
Yeah, like he's like actually one of the worst cards in the game.
All right, off to a good start. I would say.
You're doing great. Miss Marvel. Ongoing. Adjacent locations where your cards have unique costs have +5 power. So unique costs meaning you can't have 2 2-drops in the same location. You can't have 2 1-drops in the same location. You can't have 2 3-drops in the same location. They all have to be different or she loses the buff on that location. Also, as a note, people look at this and think, oh, if I have no units at a location, that counts. It doesn't count. If you have no units at a location, unfortunately, she does not give the buff.
Okay. I could see this being like okay. This might be, I don't know. I feel like now I'm doubting myself with the last one. It's like I could see this being like pretty okay. Maybe not like meta defining, but I could see it like slotting in because if you have a deck that just like plays for curve, then you might not stack like a bunch of like 1 and 2 drops on a location. So like I could see it, but maybe it's not like a meta staple. I'd say it's like a 3.
A 3 out of 5? Okay.
Yeah.
So this is actually a meta staple.
Oh my god.
This is...
Of course.
All right, this is so good because like my goal with all of these is to just like trick you. I line these up and I'm like, I hope he gets it wrong.
Man.
That's what I'm rooting for here. So this is going great for me. So Miss Marvel, there's some restrictions on her power, but also she's a 4/15. Like you put her in the middle and she's a 4/15, and it's like, okay, that's just too many numbers for her to be bad. And that's really the thing that she does is be a 4/15, and that is pretty much just good enough for her to be a meta staple. She's a lockdown staple. She goes in other mid-range decks where it's just like, I am interested in having a 4/15, and you actually described that deck, the deck where like it just sort of, you just happen to play like a card on curve every turn, and then you're never going to have those overlapping costs. And it's just like, I'm playing 1 card every turn. What do you want from me? She's a 4/15 for me. And actually, her biggest weakness is just like, you kind of have to put her in the middle, and it makes her pretty predictable. Like, she's very easy to play around, but it's one of those... Are you familiar with the cinematics for Team Fortress 2? Where the heavy is like...
Yeah, kind of.
Yeah, so like the heavy is like, many people say they can outsmart me. Maybe. I have yet to see man that can outsmart Bullet. And that's this. It's like you might know what I'm doing, but like good luck beating it, dude. That's
okay.
That's this
and
card.
That makes sense to me then.
Yeah.
That makes sense to me. So is it just like one deck that plays it, or does like every deck play this card?
Not every deck, but like if you are in the business of playing one card a turn, you play this card.
Gotcha.
Like if you're a what we would call a traditional mid-range deck, you're just like, I'm gonna play a big two, a big three, a big four. This is the big four.
Okay.
Next up, we have Martyr, 1/4, but she's reverse Captain Marvel. I think you actually remember Captain Marvel. She was seeing play about the time we did this. Yeah, Captain Marvel, at the time you played, she was a 4/5. She got nerfed to being a 4/4.
Okay.
She moved to a location that won you the game. This one only costs 1, but at the end of the game, she will try to lose it for you.
I mean, obviously, this has to be a trick, right? Like, there's definitely some deck that gives this to your opponent. Like, there's no other way that, like, I could see this card being anything other than, like, the worst card in the game unless you give it to the opponent. Because something that happens in Yu-Gi-Oh! Kind of often, it's something that we actually recently just got in Yu-Gi-Oh! Master Duel. We just got the cards to do this. Is sometimes there are really bad cards in Yu-Gi-Oh! That'll have like a restriction. Like, for example, one that's really popular right now is Gimmick Puppet Nightmare, that when it's summoned as a condition, so you can't even negate it, you can't stop it from going off, you're just not allowed to summon anything other than Gimmick Puppets for the rest of your turn. And Gimmick Puppets are, of course, this terrible deck that's just completely unplayable, right? So there is a meta deck now who has like a 1-card combo that just gives that card to your opponent. And so the whole idea is that you just give it to your opponent and then lock them out of their turn and then beat them on the next turn. So that's the only thing I could see this card doing. So like it's like contextually, maybe this is like one of the best cards in the game. So like maybe like 4 or 5, but like in a vacuum, this is probably like complete trash.
Yeah, no, there's no context that makes this not complete trash. It's complete trash.
Okay.
This card sucks.
Maybe in the future. Maybe they'll take a page out of Yu-Gi-Oh's book.
No, like you can give it to your opponent, but it's like, why would you bother? Like it'll lose you the game if it can, but like also sometimes it can't lose you the game, right? So it's like, so sometimes you're just giving them a free guy, and it's like, well, what was the point of this? Like, I have donated you a free guy that sometimes will lose you the game, but most of the time I've just given you a free guy. It's not restricting them in the same way. Like there's no like card that like limits you in that way. Also, I think locking down a turn in Yu-Gi-Oh feels a lot more valuable to me than it is in Marvel Snap. Because you can just like die if you can't do anything. Like you just instantly die. And so like 100%. that feels like the relative value. Like even if that combo existed in Marvel Snap, it probably would be good because you'd do it on like to limit their turn 6, but also like it'd have low cube equity because people would just leave. And in Yu-Gi-Oh, every game is worth the same. So when you pull off your combo that stops them from doing anything, they just have to stay in there and take it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Give me 1 second. I'm gonna make you bigger. I feel like I feel like I'm too large.
You're so generous and fair.
I just don't want your fans yelling at me in the comments.
They're leeches. It's fine.
I'm leaving that.
They'd probably come in and be like, no, make him smaller.
All right, I'll listen. I'll make you slightly smaller. There you go.
Wait. Hold on. That was them talking, not me.
Okay. All right, next up, you actually mentioned remembering this card, but do you know how good it is now? It's been a little bit for Jeff the Baby Landshark, and I will tell you that move synergy deck, it's not really around anymore. So how good is Jeff outside of that package?
I don't know. When I played with you, what I remember you telling me is Jeff is the best card in the game. Just by a mile. And I also want to agree because it's a cute little shark guy. I could see him like if there's been significant power creep, I could see it just kind of falling off and just kind of not being super impactful. Because what I remember from like playing with the card is when there were synergies with the move synergies, this card was really strong because it triggered all your synergies. But otherwise it just felt like kind of a mid 2-drop that just moved around 3 power. So I could see that it's fallen off, but I mean this is my personal favorite card from what
Okay.
I remember. So I'm rating it 5 out of 5.
I think you're actually like pretty close to right here. There's like this weird thing where like the perception of a card stays closer to what it came out as, regardless of how long that context has changed. That
Mm.
happens with this, where it's like Jeff came out as like, this is the best card in the game. It's so amazing, it's the best. And now it's like, I don't know if people have noticed this, but it's very much not being played in the best deck in the game. It's very much not being played in the second best deck in the game. And like, it is still around, but it's much more of a niche, not necessarily niche. Like, he's still awesome, but like, you play him in decks where he makes sense. Like a deck that play like most of the curve out decks, right? Like when you talked about the Miss Marvel decks earlier, a lot of them are going to be playing Jeff, partially because they're going to be playing lockdown stuff, but also the ones that aren't playing lockdown stuff are just interested in a 2-drop that they can move later so their Miss Marvel doesn't screw them over. And so like it's gone from a card that is ubiquitously played everywhere to a card that is now played very contextually. That is to say, it's still a very, very strong card. I just think that like when you played last during Twitch Rivals, it was the best card in the game and it wasn't close. And I think it is very much not in that position. And the reason I put it on this list is because I wanted to highlight that, like, what people's opinion of a card was when it comes out tends to color how they judge the card going forward. And I think a lot of people still regard Jeff as like snap best card of the game. And I just think that for a little bit now, that has not been true. It could still be true in the future, but it just has not been true basically since that metagame happened.
Now I have a question for you.
Shoot.
Is Jeff still the best art in the game?
Oh my God, dude, check this out. This is the one I use.
I love Jeff so much.
He's so sick. This is Quake 2/3 on reveal. If this is at the middle location, swap the positions of each location.
Oh. There's a location that does something like this, right?
Yeah, Starlight
Like
Citadel.
after like yeah, like it's like
Turn
after
4.
turn 4 or something.
Yep.
See, that to me feels like Quake is bad. Because if there's already a location, which means that you could get this effect for free just every so often, why would you want to play this? But I could see this being like a tech card where like in certain formats maybe like you want this. I don't know. This just feels way too RNG heavy to me. I'd rate this maybe 2 out of 5.
Yeah, she sucks. Good, but
Yeah.
I think the logic was a little bit like questionable there, where it's like, because I can think of plenty of locations where it's like, if you stuck that on a card, that would be a sick, awesome card. But Quake is not one
Yeah,
of those.
Yeah, no,
Yeah.
not this location.
Yeah.
Like maybe if it was like a really broken location. I think there was one that was like the cloning vats or something.
Yeah.
That on a car seems like that would be really busted. But just shuffling around locations that are already RNG dependent just doesn't feel good.
Yeah, that is exactly correct. Quake is very mediocre, not a particularly good card, and I honestly wonder if 2 out of 5 might be overselling her, but I think it's a fair rating.
Yeah, the only reason I think it would be like above a 1 out of 5 is like maybe there's some control deck or something that just auto loses to one of the locations. So like maybe you just need to play it just so that you don't lose to that at some point.
There are just
But
better options for dealing with those scenarios, right? Like Quake is a gotcha, basically, and not a very good one.
I see.
Yeah. Next up, we have Loki. 4/5 on reveal. Replace your hand with cards from your opponent's starting deck, but they have -1 cost.
Ooh, this card's really interesting. Now, maybe before I evaluate this, maybe I should ask you a mechanics question.
Shoot.
Does this, when it says replace cards from your opponent's starting deck, is that before or after they draw their opening hand?
It is their whole deck. So
Okay.
You can get cards that they drew in their opening hand.
Okay, cool. If that's the case, I could see this being a really good card in maybe like tournament play. if you're expecting a lot of mirror matches, this seems like an absolutely insane card. So like if there's a format where like everybody's playing the same deck or like most of the same cards, this seems absolutely busted because it's discounting cards, right? Like card discounts. That to me seems really, really, really strong. It does come down maybe a little bit late for that, but I don't know. I think this could still be really good, especially if like your hand is kind of bricked. But I could also see this card like maybe just not making the cut because, at least for maybe like ladder play, because you don't know what you're going to queue into. So like if you're playing, maybe this could seem maybe like generic play in a mid-range deck where like you don't really care what the cards is, you're just trying to play a card every turn. Um, but I think that I don't think this goes in like every deck. I think this is kind of like context dependent. I'd rate this like maybe 4 out of 5, but like given context.
It's actually better than that. So
Really?
you're evaluating it like it's a tech card that you slot in. This card
Yeah.
is your plan A. This guy is
Really?
he is your deck. So like this is a card I love giving in these types of videos because I feel like Marvel Snap more than basically any other game has sort of what I would like describe as cross contamination between game plan. Like when you play a game like Yu-Gi-Oh or you play a game like Magic or Hearthstone and there are decks that do totally different things and getting all their cards doesn't actually help you. But in Marvel Snap, every deck is trying to put points on the board. They're all doing that in some way or another. There's no other way to win. No one's trying to deck you. Like, you're not going to be playing an aggro deck and get a bunch of control cards and be like, oh, that sucks, because that's not real. Every deck does points. And so this guy is your game plan. What you do is you just, like, do some stuff that has synergy with getting a full hand, and then you play him, and then you get all their cards, and then you do what their deck was going to do, but you do it better. And this card is actually, you remember that move mid-range deck, right? Which is all about like we play efficient threats, and they're just like, this is our 2/2 that turns into like a 2/6. This is our 2/5. Imagine this card against that, because like you just get all their cards, they're one cheaper. Suddenly they're playing a 1/6 and a 1/5 and a like all their stuff they do on their turn 5, your entire turn 1 through 4 for nothing. Like it's a very like this card is an extremely dominant anti-mid-range deck tool. He crushes you if you are playing a bunch of efficient bodies, because then he gets all those efficient bodies and he plays them for more efficiency. And so you just end up getting run the hell over, because like he is like, honestly, I would say he's probably public enemy number 1 right now, although I don't think he's actually the best deck. He has been for probably like 2 or 3 months, and it's just like that lingering like, oh my god, this guy about him, because he is such a killer. Like one of the basic things Marvel Snap wants you to do is go out of your way to get as much value for your energy as you can. Like you want to spend 4 energy to get the most points possible. And this guy is like, hey man, if you're gonna spend 4 energy to get the most points possible, I'm only gonna spend 3. And people just hate that. Like it is very tough to deal with. And he has definitely done a number on the decks like the one you remember as being the top deck, that like move mid-range deck.
Okay. I can see that. I can see that. I think that makes sense to me because that makes sense like in terms, because I think I mentioned right that this would make sense in like a mid-range deck where it's like you're just trying to play like efficient cards, and this is super efficient. The only place I couldn't see it is like maybe a combo deck, like a heavy combo deck where it's just like you just want your you want your cards.
And that's actually the specific way people tend to try to counter him. It's just play a deck that's too finicky for him to copy reasonably. And that's tends to be how you beat him. You either do that or you just like try to prevent them from drawing this card. Like, that's the other option, where you just like pray. It's a strategy. But like that is he is a menace. This is Cerebro, 3/0, ongoing, Your highest power cards have +2 power.
I feel like you're giving me so many hard ones because it's like every card I can see it either being the worst card in the game or the best card in the game. Where it's like I could see this being a build around type card where there's a deck that plays a bunch of minions that all have the exact same power and then they all just get buffed by 2 power. It was Sentinel the one that adds a copy of itself back to hand.
Yes, 3/3. 2/3. Sorry.
Yeah, I could see conceptually a deck where you play like Sentinel every turn and just like load up the board with a bunch of Sentinels or something like that, and like minions that also have like 2 attack, and then you just slam this and everything gets +2. Like I could see that. I don't know how good that would be though, because that seems like a lot of investment. Because the only way I could see you keeping all of your cards having the exact same power to stack the buff is if they were all really cheap minions. Like they'd all have to be really, really cheap. So I'm gonna rate this on the lower end, and I'm gonna say it's like 2 out of 5. But like I wouldn't be shocked if you tell me that this is like a meta threat.
No, I think you're basically right on this one. Like, the Cerebro diehards are gonna come for me for this, but like, yeah, people do build around it, and it's mostly not very good. Like, that's pretty much how it works, right? Like the best Cerebro deck has ever been, the best a Cerebro deck has ever been statistically was it was a deck full of Cerebro 5, like with 5s, and that deck was only good because it didn't really rely on this. Like, because 5 is big enough that like you could actually just win games without this guy. And so it's like like Cerebro 3 is actually one of the decks that I think has risen up in a way to counter Loki. Because like getting those cards, it's just like, what the fuck do I do with this? Like, Cerebro 3 is actually quite good into Loki. Like that is a thing that you'll see a decent amount of the time, but yeah, it's not like the best deck in the game. It's not like the second best deck in the game. It's not like the third best deck in the game. It's not a deck that you ever really have to super account for. It is something you pull out when you are targeting something specific, maybe some of the time, or you're just a member of the Cerebro cult. There are plenty of those.
I see. So this is like the fan card where like people really love this deck, but it's not like the best deck.
Correct. Or it's not even like, I mean, I think a decent amount of the time it's not even like a good deck. Like, there's a decent amount of the time where it's just like, this is just actively bad and you're hurting yourself by doing this, but people love playing Cerebro.
I could see that. I could see that very easily.
This is Baron Mordo. 2/3. On reveal, your opponent draws a card. Set its cost to 6.
This is another one of those like maybe it's a tech card, I think, kind of cards where it's just like I could see this actually being crazy, especially with something like with Loki being so popular from what you told me, is you just like play this and try to hit like whatever their game plan card is, because 6 is the last turn, right?
Yeah.
So they can't play that card. Like if this card whiffs, oh well, but I could see this actually be actively pretty good, especially later into the game where you just try to hit their win condition and just tell them, okay, your combo's over. So I could see this being pretty good. I'd say 4 out of 5.
No, this guy sucks. He's he is complete ass. So the reason this guy kind of sucks is like, all right, so if you're aiming to hit their specific combo piece, he's equally as likely to hit their specific combo piece as just not hit their specific combo piece and draw them closer to it. Like, it's like, oh, okay, so there are cards that like destroy the top card on your opponent's deck, right? And it's like people are like, oh, it'll be awesome if I hit the thing that matters, right? But if there's only like 2 things that matter, like you're not likely to hit the thing that matters, and in fact you're more likely to hit some stuff that doesn't matter that they don't want to draw anyway, because they would love to play an 11 card combo deck or a 10 card combo deck. If they could do that, they would. And so you're just like doing that for them. Like, it can win you games, I'm sure it can, but like it's just not a card that's worth including in your deck on those grounds. So this guy is abysmal. He is worse even than those cards. But he has like one synergy, and there's like a deck that has a guy that scales with filling your opponent's hands up. And it's like, even in that deck, he's not even the best version of his own effect. And he's awful. He is awful. He is so bad. He is like, of the cards I normally put on here, he is worse than almost all of them. Like, he is real bad.
Oh no, he's worse than Mordo.
This is Mordo. You meant mbaku?
Mbaku. Yeah.
Honestly, they're probably about the same level. Like, they're both just like nobody would ever play this. Nobody would ever touch this and put this in their deck. I do think there are more Baron Mordo truthers than there are mbaku truthers, but I also think that those Baron Mordo truthers are mostly people who don't understand math. So
I think I'm gonna have to sign up with them, because I just rated this card 4 out of 5. I have to double down. Yeah. This is the secret sauce. You just don't know yet.
This happens like once an episode, where someone gets one of these and they're like, "Nah, I'm right."
No, I'm right. This card's crazy. Card's crazy. You're wrong.
Nah, I'm gonna do my own thing. Just like play Baron Mordo forever.
Yeah, it's like, one of these formats, it's gonna be good, guys. One of these formats. Trust me.
There's a question I wanted to ask. Is there like a Yu-Gi-Oh equivalent? Because like I feel like in Yu-Gi-Oh, I can totally understand how this card might be like a plausible thing, right? Because like you're like, the individual, I guess, action economy matters more, and also in Yu-Gi-Oh, it sort of feels like your opponent has 100% access to their deck basically at all times. Like, there's so much like just free card draw and free tutors and free go and find this, and you can kind of do not like whatever you want, but there's a much greater like latitude between like all the various ways to summon something that you can just like pull that out there. You don't actually have to draw it or whatever. And I am I wrong about that? That's the impression I got.
It's hard for me to think about what a comparison would be for Yu-Gi-Oh, because we're not a mana-based game.
Right.
So I was thinking stuff kind of like Hearthstone again, because I do play a lot of Hearthstone too, just in my free time. And something like this I could see actually being really good in Hearthstone, where it's just like you throw this down and then like you just try and mill your opponent's like win con.
Right.
But in Yu-Gi-Oh, we don't really have effects like that. Like, the closest thing I can think of would be something like a card that was just banned in Master Duel, which is a Pointer of the Red Lotus, which is a normal trap where you get to look at your opponent's entire hand and banish one of their cards until the end of the turn. So that's probably the closest I could think of.
That seems like way better, and like in the context, it's like what you're doing is you're getting rid of their like ability to interact with you, right? So like you do that on the turn, you do your combo, and you could just be like, actually, you can't do anything about this, right? Like, that's what it does.
Kind of. So the way it was used was for you to make a combo and then just check your opponent's hand to see if they have the out before they can play it, and then just rip it.
Yeah.
But what's interesting is the comparison with Baron Mordo is that for like 15, 20 years, a Pointer of the Red Lotus was considered like garbage pack filler.
Right.
And then all of a sudden, another card came out which allowed us to search that card from our deck, because trap cards in Yu-Gi-Oh aren't very good. Just in general, you typically don't want to put trap cards in your deck. But then another card came out which let us just tutor the trap from our deck for free, as well as being able to tutor basically every spell in the game. And then suddenly that card was like a huge problem, and it had to be banned, because you would just say, "Oh, you've interacted with me already. I'm just gonna look at the rest of your hand and just get rid of it."
Yeah. So what you're saying is Baron Mordo believers just wait 15, 20 years.
Yeah, 15, 20 years from now, this is gonna be the best card in the game.
All right. This is Jean Grey. Ongoing ability. Players must play their first card here every turn, if possible.
Hmm. So I'm trying to like develop like an idea of like a meta game based on what you've told me on these
Right.
other cards.
That's one of the things that
And
I like about doing these videos is like I will give out information, and I cannot tell you if it's like complete information or incomplete information. Everything you know, I can't tell you anything about it. You just have to like put it all together. I've used this for traps before, by the way, where it's like I'll put a card that's good and then a card that's kind of like that card that's bad. And so like they'll be like, this one
you
was
are
good, but this one
devious,
is
dude.
bad. No, I've done that.
You are devious.
I'm not doing that right now. I will tell you, I'm not doing that right now. I just I will say like, yes, as a host, I am cognizant of the fact that you should get better at this game as it goes on. I am cognizant of that. Let me put it that way.
Okay. So here's my thoughts on this. My initial thoughts is considering I think it was the Miss Marvel card, and that there's a like the mid-range deck. And there was, I think Miss Marvel was the one with the unique costs, right?
Correct.
That to me feels like this could be really good either in that deck or against that deck, or maybe just both in that deck and against that deck. Where you're trying to disrupt the opponent's game plan and like force them to play cards like maybe off of curve, or like force them to play cards they don't necessarily want to play like in locations. Because I don't really know how important like location based decks are right now, like if you're trying to stack everything like on the left or the right or whatever, or if it doesn't really matter. So I could see this card being okay, but I think at the same time too, like if you're up against a deck that just plays like any number of cheap cards, they could just throw a cheap card into a like whatever lane she's in and then just play in the lane that they care about. So I'd say maybe like a 3. I think it's average. Like I could see it being good, but I don't think it's like necessarily meta defining or anything.
No,
Just a solid
that's a correct rating, actually. Like she's a card where it's like there's a lot of times where you're like, oh, I can totally see how this would be good. And then like you play her and it's like she's fine. Like she's fine. Like, yeah, matchup dependent. Still a 3/3, not good stats. It's like okay. Yeah, that's basically where she's at. Where it's like, yeah, she is going to be good against those decks that really try to play one card per turn, but unfortunately, there are probably too many decks that are very comfortable playing just like, here's a 1-drop, I'm going to go do the rest of my game plan, enjoy being stuck in this lane. Like, there are too many decks that do that, unfortunately, for her to be a real thing. Like, she is a card that is in search of specific matchups, and it's hard. Even in those specific matchups, she's not necessarily like game winning the way you would want, where it's like, yeah, if you get her on 3, it's very good, but like if you draw her late, she just sucks. And it's like, if I'm going to play a card for those kind of specific matchups, I want something that just like absolutely demolishes them, rather than something that like incrementally and some of the time is very good, right? And I think that is like the major issue that she has in terms of identity. I will say, one of my friends once messaged me like, hey man, why the hell is she symmetrical? Like, if this card was asymmetrical, like if it was just your opponent.
I thought you meant the card art. I'm
no.
No.
Huh? Why is her effect symmetrical? Like, why is her effect symmetrical? I think is like a reasonable question. Like, what if they just made it asymmetrical? Would that even make her good? Like, if just your opponent had to play there, I feel like that would make her pretty damn good. But
I can see that actually.
Yeah. But like instead they made it symmetrical, and it's just like it's hard. It's hard to make her work. It sucks because she's like what, like the most famous X-Man probably? Like it's like Professor X, Jean Grey, Cyclops, Wolverine, like those are the ones people know. And Jean Grey comes out and she's the only one of those that wasn't in the base set, and it's like, well, she's kind of mediocre. That kind of sucks.
Yeah, that had to be like such a huge disappointment for fans of Jean Grey too.
It's like she's actually I know this for reasons unknown to me, because I'm not actually like a big Marvel guy, but she's the only Omega level mutant of that group. The only one. She's supposed to be the strongest one. And
Oh wow.
even Professor X isn't as strong as she is. And yet, she is
She's
definitely
the.
she's definitely not as good as Professor X in this game, I can tell you that much.
Oh no.
Next up is Shanna the She-Devil, apart from having a name made up by like internet anti-feminists. She is an on reveal card that adds a random 1-cost card to each location.
Oh man, I feel like initially I wanted to say that she seems really, really strong, but then I saw that she was a 3-drop.
Mm-hmm.
So I guess it depends on what the average stat total is of like a 1-drop. Because if like the average,
I want to say the average is somewhere around 2, but that's not taking into
uh,
account either beneficial or negative effects they may have. Like the biggest stat 1-drop
yeah,
has like the worst effect in the game for you.
well,
Like
that
so
was that was the one that we already saw, the one that loses you the game. That was a 1-drop that had
uh
like 4 power
actually no,
and
there's
loses you
one
the
that's
game.
bigger and it says you can't play here after you play it.
Oh,
Yeah, there's a bigger one. But like
oh,
yeah,
gross.
yeah, no, like there's definitely like some bad part of the reason by the way that 1-4 is bad is because she's not even like the biggest one with a downside, right? I feel like there's
Oh
probably a
wow.
role for if you're the biggest one with a downside because it's like okay we can try to remove the downside but she's not even the biggest one with a downside so it's just like she's mediocre in multiple ways. But Shanna, yeah, it's like I want to say the average is like about 2 and you do get 3 1-drops because she puts one on the location she's played at too, so it's like it's cool. It's cool, definitely. And
It's
she is
like a
above
3-8 on
rate.
average.
Uh, uh probably a little bit higher, but yeah, it's like a 3-8 on average. Which to be clear, if there was a 3-8 in the game with no downside, it'd be a very good card.
I think that, she probably might see play, like, because on average, a 3-8 doesn't sound bad. But depending on the size of the card pool, because I think there's also like 1-drops that have like negative power too, right?
There's one. Uh two one will be coming out. I'm not sure when this video is gonna come out, so she might have actually already released by this point. But as I recall, there's about 2. Or one in the game that I know, and then one that is releasing this month.
Okay. So it depends on the size of the card pool. Like, how likely is it that she pulls a bad 1-drop? I would say she's probably fine, but you just have to be okay with the gamble that sometimes you're going to play her and just lose.
Yeah. So
So
she's
I'd
pretty
say like 3.
bad. Yeah, like she's pretty bad. Like
Yeah.
like probably worse than a 3. I will say that the major issue with her is actually just board space. Like
Yeah.
you're filling up 4 board slots by playing her as something that is a 3/2 and then a bunch of other stuff where it's like, on numbers, it's probably not that bad, but in terms of efficient use of your board space, it can get really bad really fast. And so she ends up in this awkward spot where there's just not really a home for her. And decks that want to do what she wants to do often have better ways of accomplishing it that aren't as punishing. If, for example, a location flips up that says, like, you can only have 1 card here, or the location that puts
Oh
squirrels
yeah.
everywhere flips up. Like, she's just like one of those cards where it's like, if you build around her, you will end up losing to locations some of the times, and she's not worth taking that risk for, is the fundamental issue. Like, she's not strong enough for you to be like, yeah, totally. Like, Cerebro, at least, will lose to locations sometimes, but it's like, that's like a 312 if you have enough dudes. If you have 6 dudes, that's a 312. It's totally worth it. This is not worth taking that risk. That's really the issue. And that's her major problem.
Okay. And she's also inconsistent too, because
Correct.
I think there was a card that people were playing when I played. I think that was like Squirrel Girl or something. That was like a 1-drop that spawned squirrels everywhere. And that card was good, but
Well, no,
Shauna.
but early in the
Oh,
game, sure. You
okay.
you got like early in the game, right? Like, but once you get to like the actual, where people are playing real stuff, Squirrel Girl is bad for much the same reason
Oh,
Shauna is.
okay.
Because it's like, okay, well, I use all my board space on 1/1s. Thanks. Like it's
Okay. I see. I thought that card was good. Maybe it was because I was in one of the lower pools, because
Mhm.
like I was playing against that card like every other game when I played.
In lower pools, she's much better.
Okay. So maybe Shanna good in low pools?
Yeah, if only she were a low pool card.
Oh.
You literally can't get her when she would be good. It's actually one of the worst things about like Marvel Snap card acquisition is there are cards that would be good in low pool, but you cannot get them because they're not in the low pool. And so you're just like, there. All right, Shanna, you're never going to get played.
I see.
And also, I think one of the key bits of context, people in the comments are going to yell at me if I don't tell you this. The card Killmonger kills all the 1-drops on the board, makes Shanna just very, very, very sad. And he is he is he's not the reason she sucks. Like, let's be real. He's not why she sucks. But people in the comments are going to be mad if I don't mention him because for some reason people think that's why she sucks. She sucks because of the board space thing, not because like her stuff can die. But it does bear mentioning that like some of the time you'll just play this card and your whole game plan evaporates. Next up, Dr. Doom. He's a 6/5. He adds a Doombot to each other location. They all have 5 power too. But I said both, all, same thing. He had 2 Doombots, right? Like 3 locations.
Yeah. Well, I think you might have given the game away with this one earlier because I think you mentioned that Dr. Doom was good when we were discussing the other X-Men.
I did not mention that Dr. Doom was good. I know that for a fact.
Okay, well then I imagine that you said Dr. Doom is good.
No, I said first of all, Dr. Doom is not an X-Man. He's not even an X-Man villain.
He's imagine that you said Dr. Doom is good. Way. And on my soul read, I say this card is a 5.
Okay.
I say this card is a 5 on my soul read.
You are correct. He is the best 6-drop in the game, probably. That was a real life, like, how do you know this? It came to me in a dream. That's a nice argument, Senator. How about you back it up with a source?
No.
Just absolutely out of nowhere. Please do see if you can tell me why he's good, though. I just want to know.
Well, funnily enough, this again reminds me of Hearthstone with a very similar card, Dr. Boom, instead of Dr. Doom, who used to be like the best card in Hearthstone for like years and years and years because it would just give you too many stats off of one card.
Yep.
And this looks like a 6/15 to me.
That is a 6/15.
That seems correct. That seems pretty good.
Yeah. Yeah, so like yes, just the numbers, very good. But also just like freely attacking 3 lanes at the same time. It's just like it almost feels like they costed it as a downside. It's like, no, man, that's not a downside. That's an upside. Like, oh, this closed off lane. Yeah, I get 5 power there. Yeah, no, he whips. He's so sick. Like, he is consistently just been like the best 6-cost card in the game for God knows how long. He's unbelievably strong. And for the record, not even remotely related to the X-Men. He's like Reed Richards from the Fantastic Four's enemy. He's absolutely not an X-Man.
Well, who are you talking about then? Because I thought you were talking about Dr. Doom.
Did I? If I said Dr. Doom, then I'm just gonna go like I'm gonna jump out the window. I'm right next to a window. I swear. But no, like I want to say I said it's like Professor X, Cyclops.
Oh, maybe it was Professor X.
These are not even close to the same. You realize that, right?
They both went to school. They both have professor.
Oh my god,
doctor.
you got professor. It was from professor and doctor. That's what happened. You're
educated. They're powerful.
Oh shit, that sucks because I did say Professor X was good. Okay, I'm writing this down in my notes. I can't say any cards that have like even similar sounding names are good, or people will just run with that. I'll accidentally give the game away. I said Professor X was good, and this guy heard Dr. Doom, and then he was right.
The power of the soul read.
Awesome. Incredible. Amazing. All right, we got Gladiator 3/7 on reveal. Add a card from your opponent's deck to their side of this location, wherever he's played. If it has less power, destroy it.
I'm just coming out of the gate and saying that this card's like a 4 or a 5. This seems really good because it's a 3 mana, 7 power. And I can't think of too many like good cards that I can think of off the top of my head that have like more than 7 power, or that would like even like that I'm imagining.
So I'll give you a bit of a context here. Ongoings and on reveals happen before he kills him.
I'm gonna retract my previous statement.
Okay. I don't want you to...
I'm gonna retract my previous statement. That's so annoying. So if the mechanic works that it triggers their on reveals or an ongoing effect,
Right.
after
So
it
like
pulls
if it pulls out a guy that's like gets X power from Y thing, it'll get that power and then it'll look and see if it has more or less power.
Yeah, because if you pulled Professor Doctor Doom out of deck,
yes,
then,
they would still get the dudes,
the Doom
yes.
bots for free. So that seems very bad. So never mind. I'm gonna drop this card quickly down to a 1 or a 2. Like if it didn't work like that, this card would be like a 5. Like this
That's
card would
honestly
be broken.
true. Like yeah, if it didn't work like that, this card would be broken. As is, yeah, you're right.
Yeah.
Like yeah, this is a it's a, we'll call it a very specific card, but like yeah, the 3/7 should, like, I feel like that should tip you off that like what it's doing is actually bad, because they would never give it that stat line if it wasn't like, yo, this thing is gonna kill you some of the time. Like you're gonna play this guy and you're gonna be like spending 3 energy on giving your opponent 10 power or something. Like
what I feel like this card exists not to be like a card that you play, but a card to teach you game mechanics. Right. So it's like you get this card and you read it and it's like, this card is broken. You do exactly what I did. You say, this card is broken. I'm putting this in everything. This card's busted. And then you lose because you pull a Doctor Doom out of deck and it triggers. And like you destroy the Doctor Doom, but you just gave them 10 power for free. And this card was suddenly awful. And then you say, I see, that's how the game mechanic works. And then you take it out of your deck and you never make that mistake again.
So while I think that would be a good thing to do, would you care to venture a guess how much it costs to acquire this card?
If you're asking me, way too much.
You are correct. Yes. This is not a card you get for free. This is a card you can only acquire either in the caches or in the shop, and it is currently in Series 5, meaning you can either choose between this or Jeff. You can choose between this or Thanos. You can choose between this or Loki. You can choose between this or Miss Marvel. So yeah, it's currently not filling that role. Let me put it that way.
Yeah, I recognize the cards that you mentioned, so that's not a good sign.
It's not a good sign. Like it is the same price point as many of the best cards in the game, unfortunately. And that does put you in a very awkward situation. You're a Yu-Gi-Oh player. You're used to enormous text boxes being either really good or really bad. They've recently released the card with the biggest text box in the game ever of all time. So this is Nico Minoru. On reveal, after you play your next card, cast a spell. So what this basically means, I'm going to translate this one because like they did like some flavor stuff here. Her card text changes every turn, and between 6 options. Once you've seen one option, you cannot see it again, and it changes in your hand. So you get to know what you're playing, but it changes every turn. So each turn you have to be like, do I want this, or am I willing to let her roll again? And the options are double her power.
Okay.
Add a copy of the next card you play to your hand.
That's pretty good.
Replace the location at the next card you play. So it's like not the location she's at, but the location that card is at. All her effects are after the next card triggers, basically.
Okay.
The next card gets +2 power.
Okay.
The next card moves 1 location to the right. The next card dies and you draw 2 cards.
Okay.
And the next card becomes a demon, which is a 1/6.
So out of curiosity, with the spell, is the spell in the hand? So like
It's just her text. Like that's what I'm saying when I talk about the flavor. The spell is her text. You see, like she gets
okay, so she changes her on summon effect
yeah to
when
one of
she's in the
these.
hand.
Yes, to one of
Okay.
these every turn.
Okay, so it's not like you play her and then after you play a card, she
No,
triggers one of those 6 effects.
you know what you're gonna get when you play her.
Okay, I see. I'm not gonna lie, I think this card's pretty good. Like, this seems pretty good. None of these seemed like really bad effects to me. Like, they all seem like they're giving you positive value. The worst one looked like the one where it's like destroy the next card you play, draw 2. But like, if you combo that with a 1-drop, that's Pot of Greed. So that's pretty decent to me. I would rate this card pretty highly, because you have control over which effect it is, and she's a 1-drop, so it's not like you're spending a ton of mana to get what's potentially a powerful effect. So I think she could be pretty good, actually.
Give me a number on the scale.
I'd say 4. Like I could see there being like downsides. I don't think she's like maybe the best card in the game, but like I would rate her pretty highly. I think she's pretty decent.
All right. Would you revise it up if I told you the draw 2 was the best effect that she had?
Maybe.
Yeah, no. So
Maybe.
she's a little better than you said, actually, because that
Really?
draw 2 is the best effect that she has. And if you were rating her as if that was not a good effect, it is the one that most people like. If people propose balance changes to this card, which most people don't, because she never feels as strong as she is. But that draw 2 is completely busted in a 12 card deck game. Like, you
I
have
guess that's
12
fair.
cards in your deck. If you are drawing 2 of them for free, you are seeing 11 of those 12 cards by the end of the game. You are going to do the thing that you are doing with that. And
That
yes, you
makes
throw it away
sense.
with the 1-drop. And there's sometimes synergy there, right? Like you blow up a card that wants to be blown up or whatever, right? Like she is
Uh, she's
bonkers.
busted.
Yes,
She's insane. She's insane.
extremely, extremely good. It's like, yes, that is Pot of Greed. And Pot of Greed is better in this game than it would be in any other game. Like, this is the best
Yeah.
possible condition for a Pot of Greed to be in when the deck is that small. And so she is like in like, for example, like a Loki bounce deck. And we're getting to the end. I feel comfortable talking to you about what decks are good and what decks are bad. In a deck like that, she draws 2 cards, which means you're so much more likely to play the Loki on time. And your hand gets a little more full for the Loki. And you just like that is a snap condition. Like, having her draw 2 cards is that good in some of these mirrors, because it's like we're playing the same deck, except I do my thing better than you. And so like you are just very clearly in a situation where you know that you're going to do the thing, and if they can't do the thing and match you, you're going to win the game. And because you know you're doing the thing, you just get to snap, because like you're going to see every card in your deck. And like, so that's to say nothing of like every other ability she has, which is also, they're also mostly very good. But
Yeah.
she is a 5 out of 5 card, I would say. Like this is a good meta for her. I'm not saying she's always going to be a 5 out of 5, but right now this is a 5 out of 5 card.
I could totally see that, especially with like the way that I was thinking about it is like you're already so consistent, like because the deck is so small that like you maybe don't need the card draw, but you're totally right. Like in a combo deck or something where you just want to see like your win condition, I could easily see that being the best effect.
Yeah,
just
like
so good.
it's so dumb. Like in as much as people like, this is a card that is like fundamentally fair. Like, she's not the card that is the reason people lose, and so she sees less complaints than she probably deserves, because you don't really process that you lost because of her. You lost because of what the actual win condition was, etc., etc. But like, if people do complain about this, if they're smart enough to complain about Nico, the thing they complain about is like, holy shit, why does she draw 2 cards? Like, they need to make that not draw 2 cards. Like, that is the thing that they complain about.
Broken in another card game. Who would have thought?
Yeah, like that's the specific one. They're like, oh my god, can she draw 1 card, dude? Like, Jesus, it's definitely a thing.
Yeah, I could definitely see that. This card seems very good.
She is quite powerful. This is Werewolf by Night. 3/3. And after you play an on reveal card at another location, it goes there and gains 2 power.
So whenever you play like an on reveal card,
Yes.
it moves and then gains 2.
This card moves, not the on reveal.
Yeah,
card.
right.
Yeah.
Oh man. So if this card was out, when we played Twitch Rivals, this would be like an 11 out of 5. Like, this seems crazy because it's like whenever you play a card that has an effect, just yeet this guy around and just get better.
Mm-hmm.
I could see this being really good, actually. Like, but you've told me that the move deck isn't like good anymore, which makes me feel like that maybe this card isn't as good as it might have been like previously. But I don't know, like cards that snowball themselves off of just playing what to me just seem like good cards, because I feel like most good cards would have on reveal effects. Or at least like if it's not an ongoing effect, it'd be an on reveal effect. So I could see this being okay, but this is where I'll use a little bit of the knowledge I have of playing the game. This comes out on turn 3 on curve at best, which means you only have 3 more turns to buff it.
Mm-hmm.
You have to play the on reveal card in a different location than wherever Werewolf is.
Yes.
So at most, this is a 3/9. But it forces you to play 3 on reveal cards for the rest of the game. I don't know. I think that this card is like decent. I think it has potential to be like one of the like game-winning cards, but also potential to just like you draw it too late and it does nothing. So maybe like a 3.5 out of 5.
This guy's a 5.
Really?
He is the best scaling threat in the game. And where you whiffed in terms of evaluating it is, you can do it more than once a turn, right? So like you play a 1-drop with an on reveal, and then a 1-drop with an on reveal, and then a 2-drop with an on reveal, and then he's enormous. Like that's his thing.
You can do that, can't you?
Yes. So like
and
the meme
I should have known that because of the deck that you played. What was it? The Thanos Galactus deck. With all the stones, because those are all
they're all on reveals, which actually he doesn't even go in there. Like what he is, like we talked about the Loki bounce deck. He's insane.
Yeah, I was thinking about the Loki. That's exactly the deck I was thinking of.
He's insane there. Like you play your little 1-drop on reveals that put stuff in your hand for Loki, and then you bounce them back to your hand, and then you have a full hand for Loki, and then you can replay them if you want, and you don't have the Loki. Then the meme with this guy is like he's a 3/17. Like he is huge.
3/17.
He's huge. He's consistently like enormous. Like there's a current debate in my Discord that happens all the time. It's like, how would you even nerf him? Because it's like if you make him if you take him to plus one, he power, sucks, right? If you take him to +1, he sucks. You just like obliterated the card. But like then there's the question of like, all right, how bad would his base stats have to be for you to be okay with his effect? Right? Because like I've seen people talking about like, what if he was a 3/0? And the fact that that's actually a thing people are throwing out there, like, so sort of goes to prove like just like how dumb this guy is. Because like you said 3/17 like it was crazy, but like 3/17 is like it's like a little on the high end. Like it's not actually that far out of the norm. Like it's a thing that'll happen, definitely. Like he's also just like a very hard card to play. Like he's just very, very difficult to play. So I think it's one of those cards where it's like, if you look at the overall numbers on him, they might not be that good. And I think they've run into a couple of things like this in Balance recently, where it's like, this card is really good for good players and really not as good for not good players. And that is like a delta they've had with multiple cards. Loki's another example where it's like the card is so good when you know what your opponent is doing and you can play their deck better than them. But if you're not good enough to know that stuff, then he's not a very good card. And so it's very hard to balance those cards for both the wider population and the people who play at a high level.
Yeah, that's a problem that frequently comes up in Yu-Gi-Oh! Is that there's so many cards, especially in Yu-Gi-Oh!, where the card at like high level play is just disgustingly broken, and then the average player picks up the card and it's like, this card sucks. Like,
Yeah.
what? Like, why are people playing this?
Yes. Like that Werewolf is definitely one of those. All right, I think that's gonna do it. I think that's good. That's good for me.
Perfect.
Yeah. All right. Let's
Perfect.
do an outro or something.
All right. Cool.
All right, Trish. Thank you so much for joining us for this episode of Guess/Rate the Cards/ I don't have a good name for this series, but everyone knows it's a series that I do. Do you have anything you want to say to the audience? You wanna apologize for the Martyr rating? You wanna anything?
Soul reads. Make
Yeah.
sure that you practice your soul reads. Also, Mordo, best card in the game. Just wait 20 years.
For sure.
Werewolf mid.
Werewolf mid.
Play Yu-Gi-Oh.
I do not endorse that message. Do not play Yu-Gi-Oh.
Play Yu-Gi-Oh Master Duel, please.
Where can they find you?
You can find me all the time on Twitch at Trishula TTV. I'm live literally like every single day, pretty much all day too. But yeah, no, this was a lot of fun. Thank you for having me on.
All right, it was a blast to have you on. Thank you so much for doing it, and for y'all watching, thank you so much. We can best. I just hit the microphone. I will see you in the next one.